Now I'm going to cover course materials. So here we are once again on the Blackboard page. You're going to notice that there's something called a course review quiz right here at the top. This is something that you actually have to complete by the due date. It has May 8th here. So hopefully you're watching this video with enough time to complete this. And it's a quiz that there's 15 questions, and they address questions about how the course is being run this semester. And you have to answer the questions correctly. You have to get all 15 questions correct in order to actually unlock being able to submit anything for the class. So this is meant to really compel you to thoroughly go through all of the course materials, which I'm going to briefly cover in this video, but you'll need to reference them on your own and complete this quiz demonstrating that you understand how this course is being run, the expectations of what you're going to be doing, and stuff like that. So keep in mind that it's very important for you to have this information because it's kind of blocking your ability to actually move forward in the course whether or not you pass this quiz. Now, it is set up with unlimited attempts, but please don't just keep trying and clicking, and I can see that, right? So go through this video, go through the materials on your own, take the quiz, reference the materials while you're taking the quiz, and get 100%, and then you can start actually working on your project. So course materials. In here, you'll see a link to a project brief, a course reference page, super important resource for this class, a folder of project examples and recommendations. These are pretty much similar to what was given to you last semester, as well as just a classic course outline and a critical path. Now, the project brief, since the project is basically the whole class, you can just think of this as being an overview of the course itself in some ways. And this I actually will kind of go through specifically just because I do want to make sure that it's covered clearly. So you are a multimedia designer hired by Humber College to create a portfolio project that demonstrates and builds on skills you have learned in the multimedia design and development program, while also exploring new skills in that process as well. Builds on is important there. This project will be showcased on your portfolio to help you start on your desired career path. That's the whole point of this course. That's what I really hope you can get out of it. This project must explore a skill or technology beyond previous course projects. That's very important. Be relevant to your personal interests. Also very important. That's key for self-motivation, for you actually working on this project because you enjoy doing it, not because I'm sitting here with a whip telling you what to do. The project must contribute to your career portfolio, so not only be linked to your personal interests, but also be something that could help you get the sort of job that you would like, or the sort of position or work that you would like to have outside of school once you graduate. And, of course, be developed in a self-directed manner. That's key for this class. Now, your project may not double dip with another course project, for example, your portfolio website. I've had students who also are taking the portfolio class, where from what I understand, you're required to build a portfolio website or create one in that class. And they say, oh, well, how about for the self-directed course, I'll just build my portfolio website in that, and then it kind of double dips, right? So none of that, please. This should be an original project for this class that builds on specific skills that then is showcased on your portfolio, right? So it will exist within your portfolio as a project, but isn't the portfolio itself. Your project may also not be a reproduction of a previous course project. Once again, this is really meant to stretch, improve, and build on your skills and abilities in new ways. So I have also, again, had students before say, okay, I have this old course project, but I kind of want to spend this class improving it. I think that your project for this class should be something more from scratch. Now, if you would like to build on the project that you did in the previous self-directed project class, there might be some possibilities there if you can argue for your contribution to that project basically being a whole new component of it that can span all of this time, but really be thinking of this project as something original that you're going to be building out to put in your portfolio to fulfill all of the points that it's supposed to fulfill. This project will simulate a remote work freelancer/client relationship where you will invoice the client, me, for your completed work. These invoices will be submitted weekly via Blackboard with evidence of your work completed. So I've worked as a freelancer for sure many times on many different kinds of projects. The way that you get your work to your client is that you send an invoice that details, what were the tasks you completed, how long did it take you, what was your rate, and then you also include the work itself that you did complete, right? So I'm really trying to help you get that skill, get in that sort of pattern, and you're going to be submitting these things through Blackboard, which still is a school-based thing, but the format in which you're doing it is more to simulate that professional scenario. Payment. Credit in the course will be given in points that simulate money payment. So $1 equaling 1 point in the class. You were hired under the following conditions. Your rate is $25 an hour. Not the greatest rate, but not the lowest rate either. But that's the rate you're hired as a student in this class. So 25 points per hour, basically. The budget for this contract is $1,050, which equates to 42 hours of work. This is a 42-hour course, right? So basically, that's how I'm developing or getting these numbers. The maximum weekly payment on your contract is $150, which would be 6 hours of work. So that's meant to stop you from saying, okay, this week I did 24 hours of work to fulfill half of the project, right? No. The point of this class is to get you in the habit of making incremental progress week to week. So the maximum payment you can receive per week is 6 hours. Even if you do complete more hours of work than that and you invoice for that, the maximum payment you'll receive for that week is $150 or 150 points. Once again, to try and get you away from the idea of just doing a whole bunch, giant sum of work at one particular point in time rather than spreading it out throughout the semester. You'll submit invoices each week along with your project work to receive payment of course credit. SAT unsat. The following will lead to a successful project, which would be a SAT in the course. Submitting weekly invoices on time in the correct format with all requested deliverables. Maintaining 4 to 6 hours of demonstrated work each week. Arriving at supervisor meetings on time and prepared. There's more than that would lead to a successful project, but those are some key things, right? If you did those things, you'll probably end up with a SAT in the course, right? So consider that the baseline of what's required from you. The following will lead you to be taken off the project and unsat in the course, right? 1 week of 0 hours of demonstrated work. That means that you weren't fulfilling your contract obligations for that week. More than 2 weeks of under 4 hours of demonstrated work, right? If you start really lagging behind, then that's going to lead to problems down the road. So more than 2 weeks of only under 4 hours of demonstrated work would lead to an unsat in the course because the project is not going to be completed with the expectations that were outlined. More than 2 late invoices, which must be submitted with a late waiver. And I'll talk about what that is in a little bit, but basically you have 2 opportunities to submit late work throughout the semester, but when you submit that late work, it has to have an attached late waiver that you fill out where you basically have to be saying, look, I understand this is late and I will change my behavior like this to ensure that I will not have any more late submissions, right? After 2, if you have another late submission, it's an unsat in the course because once again, in a professional scenario, at that point, you would most likely be taken off the project based on not keeping up with the expectations of your contract. Missing supervisor meetings with no prior communication, arriving late, or being unprepared. Those are just classic unprofessional things that can happen in this environment. So please do not do that. And then overall project work being under 28 demonstrated hours. So if at the end of the semester, your hours are calculated and your payment is calculated and it's under 28 hours, then that would be not fulfilling the expectations of this contract and you would not get credit for the course. It would be an unsat, right? So again, bare minimum over 28 hours of work in the course, but the expectation baseline would definitely hopefully be 42 hours, which is the full amount of credit that this course is meant to fulfill. Tips for success: read weekly announcements thoroughly at the start of each week, as they will detail key information about work for the week, as well as any changes or updates to the class. Access the course reference page for clarification about aspects of the course and project. And if your question isn't addressed there, reach out to your professor, me, supervisor. I keep using interchanged. I'm your professor and your supervisor and your client here, okay? So I'm having to wear multiple hats. Contact me via Blackboard Messenger. Organize your work time each week to maintain development on your project and not fall off track. Super important, and that's really what this format is meant to push you to do. So that's the project brief. the course reference page, which is linked here within this document, but you can also access it here directly on Blackboard. This course reference page details important aspects of the course for clarification. If you have a question about the course not addressed in this page, contact your professor via Blackboard Messenger or one of your classmates as well. I'm not going to go through everything in this because this is a lot of information, and this is things you will be expected to know about the course. And you're kind of quizzed on a lot of this information in that quiz that you have to complete. But I have it here as a Google Doc so that you can easily reference if you have a question about, okay, how do I do my project timeline, right? You can click on it here and you'll see that there's a template that you can access here to build out your project timeline, right? So there are a lot of templates included here. There's one for your proposal, one for your invoice, for your timeline, for how to include your project work, and even the late waiver is here too, right? So all this information is here for you to access. These templates are here for you to access. When you're accessing these Google Doc templates, please do not request to edit them. That's not how you will have your own version of this document. What you have to do is go to File, make a copy, and then copy it to your own Google Drive so you can edit it there and then export it there. And yeah, you'll see, it's a lot of very similar things when you look at the project proposal and the project timeline. The proposal covers a lot of the similar things that you would have done when you made your proposal last year. There are some small changes, like, what was one of the changes? One thing I want you to be able to do is to really demonstrate what are the goals of having this project in your portfolio by providing a link and description of a job or position that the project would help you get. So I have examples here throughout the document that you can look at. It's the same examples last semester where I'm making a multimedia campaign for Taylor Swift's concert at the Rogers Center. But you can see as an example, right, this is a job posting for being a multimedia director for a music company, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a job posting that you fully qualify for. That may not make sense. It may not have to be a job posting that is something you would actually get. So it may have to, it could be somewhere else in the world or whatever. But at least you're showing like this is the kind of job, the kind of position that you are seeking, and that you feel that having this sort of project in your portfolio would help you get. That's what I want you to be able to show here, right? To really connect what you're working on in this course with your career goals. And if your career goal is to be an independent, self-sustained YouTuber or something like that, then you would just need to articulate that. I have no problem with that, but you just need to be clear about how the project then would help you on that sort of direction as well. If you want to be your own business owner or something like that, right? It doesn't have to be a position at a pre-existing company, but you should be able to explain and link how this project will help you fulfill your career goals. I also have it in here for you to provide an example of a project similar to what you're going to make. So again, for this example of the Taylor Swift multimedia assets, I found a project on Behance where someone did similar work with a rebrand for the film Poor Things. So just made a bunch of digital assets. There's motion, there's different things involved. Again, it's not super connected, but at least just starting to show like what kind of project you're trying to get out of this. And I can give you a baseline for quality to strive for as well, right? Now you shouldn't be finding a project that you want to replicate exactly, but simply just saying like, look, this is the kind of thing I'm hoping to get out of this project. And you can find that on Behance, or if it's just something you come across online or on social media or out in the world, a website, anything, right? Just trying to, again, demonstrate an example of the sort of idea you have for what you want to make here. And the other things are all stuff that were covered before, so I won't go super into that. Again, if you have any specific questions about that, you can ask me. The timeline, you can see here, it is split into 7 weeks because that's how long this course is. Stage 1 taking place in week 1, Stage 2 in weeks 2 and 3, Stage 3 in weeks 4 through 6, and Stage 4 in week 7. I have already pre-input the sort of course deliverables that are being requested from you week to week. If there are any new ones or any of those change, I'll make sure to send an update and an announcement. I won't be able to go into each of your plans and change it manually, but you can make that update yourself. I have used Google Doc here for you to have your plan saved so that you can check it off easily, because it's also required that each week when you submit your deliverables and your invoice, you also submit an updated plan. So you'll export a PDF showing what you did that week crossed off, and that's really meant to make you every week think about, are you on track or not with what you had proposed. So you'll see for the first week, you'll need to design your invoice, develop your project proposal, develop your plan, your timeline. Let me call it timeline just to keep it consistent. You can start on remote work foundations, but that runs from week 1 throughout week 1 and 2, as well as book a meeting with me the first week so that you have it ready to have your meeting 1 notes due in week 2. So again, there's a lot of kind of having to say, okay, so so you're seeing here, right? Week 1 and 2, remote work foundations. What is that? Okay, well, let's go to the course reference page, and you'll see it says remote work foundations. You click on it. You are required to complete the LinkedIn Learning course, Remote Work Foundations, within the first 2 weeks of the semester. It should take around 1 to 2 hours to complete. This online course will get you on a path to success as a remote worker and will add a remote work certification to your LinkedIn profile. And this certification replaces the event participation assignment you did last semester, right? So rather than doing the event, I'm having you do this LinkedIn Learning course, because I think it'll also be good to have on your LinkedIn profile that you have remote work certification or whatever, again, if this is something you're trying to do once you graduate. And it's a pretty straightforward course. Oh, this is the wrong link, so I'll need to update that. You can access it here. I'll update that link. Yeah, here it is on LinkedIn. You'll sign in with your Humber account, and you'll have LinkedIn access to LinkedIn Learning. And there's videos of a professional woman, and she's detailing all kinds of really important stuff when it comes to being a professional remote worker. Not everything may adapt specifically to the class, because she is definitely talking about after school contexts, but it's very important and still good information to have. I believe there's a test at the end, an exam at the end of the online course, and then you get a certification, and you just have to, with your weekly deliverables, show you have the certification. And I have you completing that early on in the semester so that you can have those foundations that you utilize throughout the course, rather than having this due later on and then you learn things in week 5 that you realize could have been very helpful the whole time. So it is a very front-loaded course with the first couple of weeks. Once you just get to doing project work more week to week, it'll get a bit more streamlined. So it might seem very overwhelming at first, but I promise it will start to ease up. But yeah, there's a lot in your first week as you build the foundation for your project, as well as building the foundations for your skills as a remote worker, which you'll just keep developing throughout the semester. Let me see here, reference page, remote work foundations. You'll also see on the course reference page, it says remote teams. You are assigned to a remote team in the course. These teammates will act as your allies throughout the semester to keep one another on track. Utilize the remote team's discussion board on Blackboard to provide contact info for your teammates. So you'll see on Blackboard, there's a remote team discussion board under additional resources. And I ask you early on to just say hello, say your favorite food. That adds a little bit of personality to this post, and find a way to how to connect remotely, right? So you'll need to work with your team to say, hey, we'll have a WhatsApp chat or we'll make a Discord. And that's meant to be kind of your allies, your remote coworkers, basically, throughout this process, to update one another on how your projects are going, ask each other questions about the course. I know there's a lot of things happening already that you might be confused about, so you can talk about it with your classmates, with your teammates, and then when it comes time for the peer feedback sessions, it will be with these remote teams that have been created. That way you will have consistent people reviewing your work throughout the semester so they can really see how your project is building over time. I got some interesting insights from students last semester about how that would be helpful. So I have just created dedicated collaboration teams for you to do those feedback sessions with throughout the semester. And just connect with these people, talk about the class and your projects, and use each other for help, inspiration, again, your allies here. And that, again, there's a lot more information here. The late waivers are here, right? Again, pretty self-explanatory once you open it up, but is this the first or second waiver you're using? And then you have to include which of the following skills you were lacking that led to the late submission. Was it time management and self-motivation? And then explain how you're going to make sure to address those behaviors to stay on track moving forward. Put your name, export it, and include it with your late submission, right? So I'm really trying to hold you accountable for these things and make you reflect on why your work is even late and how you can change your behavior to be more on time in the future. AI policy is the same as before. I do request with your submissions on Blackboard that you include a message, attached is my invoice with the requested work. You can also ask for specific feedback in that comment box on Blackboard. Please don't generate those messages with AI. That's really distressing to receive emails that are clearly AI generated and not something I would encourage you to do in your professional careers. The student has already gotten, it's dramatic, but a student has already gotten let go of a work placement because they were using too much AI without it being allowed, basically. So you want to be transparent about using AI, and you don't want it to replace very personal things like that. Let's see. I know I'm jumping around quite a bit here, and so it's going to take time to register all of this, but use your colleagues to connect with to talk about what it is that this course is. Let's see. Yeah, just for official purposes, the outline and critical path are here. But once again, I don't plan to really go through this. You've seen this outline before last semester. If you want to ask me anything about it, you're welcome to. Again, there is the change where this event participation and reflection assignment is now the remote work foundation certification you will complete. This is the critical path, but it's basically just the timeline template showing you what's going to be expected of you week to week with your weekly deliverables. And the way that that's going to look is once you have access to the weekly deliverables here, you have to complete this quiz to get there. You'll see that it's pretty straightforward. It's just saying, for week 1, you need to have your invoice for your weekly work, as well as a design of that invoice, your proposal, your timeline. That's what's requested from you for week 1. Your invoice should reflect the following tasks. Course review. I have invoiceable up to 1 hour. That's about how long I would think it should take for you to go through all of this and understand it. Maybe I'll put a little bit more time depending on how long these videos get. Invoice design. So designing your invoice, which there is, if you go to the course reference page and you go to invoice guide, you will see there's a template here. And I want you to personalize this invoice, right, so that it seems like it's coming from you as a designer. And you can see that the format and the template is here. The invoice number, change it with each week. Date of issue, when did you submit this? Break down each task. Your rate is $25 an hour. How many hours did that task take? Calculate the total of that task, and then get the total due here, right? And then please find the associated work attached along with this invoice. That's a basic template. As is with all of these templates, you are welcome to not the late waiver, but the proposal and the timeline, I guess, and especially the invoice. You can use InDesign or some other tool to create it, just as long as it contains the same requested information. Just don't use some completely separate template that is including all sorts of things that aren't requested, right? So you're welcome to go outside of Google Docs. This is just really a framework for you. But again, refer to this to make sure all of the same information is included. And other recommendations are given here, like there's additional tasks you can complete this week if you have the time or would like to get ahead. Like you can spend, an hour doing some of the remote work foundations course, going through some of the videos. You could invoice saying that you did that work this week. If you meet with me, you can invoice it for up to 0.5 hours, half an hour, even though the meetings are only 15 minutes. Right? You can just invoice me for that time. And so if you meet with me in week 1, you can add that to your week 1 invoice, right? Again, it's all about keeping track of the work that you're doing. This is meant to help you reflect as well as where your time is being spent. And again, as you do more of that, you'll get a sense for, are certain things taking you too long? And if it is, you need to maybe switch tasks or refine how you're approaching it or what's going on there, right? So it's meant to really get you thinking about how much time is being spent doing certain things, keeping track of that, and demonstrating that. Guidelines for each submission is to include a professional message in the comment box and any specific feedback requests as well, right? It's a lot to be getting project work every week from students, so I can't reasonably provide feedback on every single part of it every week. If you would like specific feedback on something, say, hey, take a look at these logo drafts, let me know what you think, which one you think is stronger, right? Or do you feel like this mood board matches the vibe I'm trying to convey or the brand I'm working with, right? So give specific feedback requests. That also helps you to be able to articulate asking for feedback, right? And I can provide feedback on those things. Otherwise, you may not be receiving the feedback that you need to succeed. So really be thinking about what feedback you need on each of these submissions. Similarly, if you're sending something to a client, you would say, what do you think about the colors or whatever, right? Submit PDFs as direct attachments, not as a zip folder. That's important. It makes it way easier for me to review your work if you just attach them as all PDFs rather than as a zip folder I have to download and access elsewhere, and I can't directly comment on it and all that. So please do that. Your submission must include the requested deliverables to receive credit, and if submitting late, there's a link to the late waiver there, and then you can access the course reference page for clarification on anything, right? And the rubric I'm going to be using, you'll see that, right, I'm evaluating you for stuff that doesn't clearly have points attached to it, but that's so there's just to give you some general feedback, right? So is the submission and the presentation of what you delivered professional? Is the work of good quality? Are you progressing well on the project? This is just kind of checkpoints for you to look at. And then this is the hourly payment, right? So this is where you'll be divvied up for however much you are requesting in your invoice to be paid for, basically, right? So that's how you're going to receive that. So all of these deliverables that you weekly submit are out of 150 maximum points, which again is the payment you're receiving. I know this is a lot of information. I think that should cover it for the course materials, but there's a lot more there. And yes, access the course review quiz and complete that to be able to actually get going on submitting your stuff for this class. So I think that covers it for that, honestly. Let me go back here. Get back to full video, 27 minutes. Yeah, so I will add maybe, I'll make the course review invoiceable for maybe an hour and a half of time, just because these are getting quite extended. In conclusion, stay ahead on your projects. You're going to notice that the deliverables are due every Friday at 11 p.m. That's different than them being due at 11:59. So anything after 11 p.m. will be triggered as late, even if it's over the weekend. That's a bit different than done before, but that's meant to really get you submitting your work done for that work week. And then if you want to spend time working over the weekend on this, then you can spend that time working on the next batch of work that's due, right? So rather than using the weekend to try and catch up on something that's already been due, use the weekend to try to get ahead on what's coming up, right? I'm trying to really enforce that kind of behavior on you. Reach out to me on Blackboard Messenger with any questions. Once again, this is a lot of info, might seem quite confusing, but reach out with any questions. And you'll get out of this course what you put in, right? So if you just try to figure out the easiest way to skate by and get the bare minimum done, then that's the sort of behavior you will have in a professional context, and that's what can be expected of you as a worker. But if you do really utilize this as an experience to improve your remote work skills, improve your time management, your self-motivation, all those very important things, I promise that it will be very beneficial for you in the future for no matter the working context that you have, whether it's a freelance position, whether it's a flexible in-office, out-of-office, whether it's even all in-office. You're going to learn a lot about just how you work independently. That should be very helpful for you moving forward. There's going to be more things that need to be said. I'm sure I can always just add them in the weekly announcements. I don't plan to make too many videos like this. Once again, I did it this week because there's a lot to cover, and you can reference this again to go through it. One final thing you will notice on the course review quiz that you have to take Once again, there's 15 questions. The 15th question asks you how many minions it takes to screw in a light bulb, I think. And the answer to that is banana. Okay? That's there to see whether or not you got to the end of this video. So this is a good experiment, and keep in touch. Again, this is an opportunity for you to become a strong remote worker. You will get there, I promise. And book a meeting with me as soon as possible. You have to do it before the end of the second week of the semester. Get it booked with me this week to meet early to talk about what you're thinking about with your project. Book with me next week in week 2 to talk about how your timeline is set up or wherever you're going to be at. My availability may kind of ebb and flow and shift a little bit throughout the semester just as I can see what best works for students. I have some idea of when your other classes are, so I tried to give availability outside of those other MMDD classes. For instance, I know that your other class on Monday is also online, so I have a lot of availability on Monday, hoping that that works out well for you. Anyway, move forward, reach out with any questions, and best of luck.